Hi and welcome to this new devlog. I'm Laurent, co-founder and lead developer at Firewall Studio.
And I'm Cedric, lead artist and co-founder. Today we're presenting the combat systems being developed in Ascent Quest. Keep in mind that all of the following footage and concepts will be improved and may go through changes in the coming months.
Yes, we are still at the beginning of the alpha, so what you are about to see may look unpolished, but it is not representative of the final product. Let's start by talking about physics in combat. In a virtual reality game, it's essential that melee combat is well simulated. We can't just create an attack animation like classic games and call it a day. One of the best approaches is to base the fight on physics, making attacks physically stoppable and taking into account points of impact. We are well aware of the importance this represents and how it affects the fun of combat. It is also important for projectiles. In VR, we can move a bit or crouch to avoid objects or try to intercept them with our weapons. It's also fun for players playing as a caster. For example, in this video you can see the player using the fireball against a goblin that is using the same spell. The two fireballs can collide, so you can use your own spell to negate the enemy's attacks, but you should also try to launch your spell from another angle to avoid being blocked the same way. Physics simulation in combat is important, but we also have to remember that Ascent Quest is an online game that can host hundreds of players. And when we say online game, it means that you have to be careful with latency and server calculation capacities. So, some simulation has to be done client-side. Anyway, alongside physics, fights will feature many other mechanics to ensure that they are fun and dynamic. Which brings us to the next point.
Artificial intelligence in combat. This is another key to making fun battles. The AI, in its most basic approach, will chase after the player and start attacking when close enough. If the AI is as simple as that, the game becomes boring very fast. This is why creating advanced AIs is high on our to-do list. Enemies must be able to choose to stay away, charge, flee, or even circle around you in order to defeat you. We have to do this in a dynamic way, changing behavior in the middle of the fight by taking into account the position of the target or current health. Thus, you will have to get to know your enemies and deduce the best way to engage in combat. Let's take some examples. This weak water slime sends projectiles in the direction and stays away. But, when approaching, it can decide to use another skill, allowing it to make a powerful attack around its body or try to regain some distance. That's a low-level slime, but that's the kind of mechanics we are extended for more epic fights. Another example is the Earthwalker. This mighty foe would make short work of a young adventurer in close combat. Fortunately for us, it is very slow. It will try to reach you in close combat, but as long as you are away, it will take advantage of its strength to throw rocks at you. If you get closer, it will stop launching rocks and use its giant hands to crush you. A player who specializes in melee and enjoys games requiring a bit of movement will love fighting this type of enemy. Although its blows can one-shot you if you are low on defensive stats, its slowness gives the opportunity to move around it to avoid its attacks. Defeating it like this is very fun, as the risk is high, but it also makes an easy target for casters in your party now that it stopped throwing rocks at them. These are very basic AI examples under development, and we continue to work on them to have more complex behaviors that can really enhance the dynamic of combat. Now, you have probably noticed another technique we use in combat to add more variety. Let's talk about it.
Telegraphed attacks. Telegraphed has those yellow markings on the ground. They appear a bit before powerful attacks hit the represented area. It invites the player to move to avoid taking damage. By using different shapes and combos, it allows us to create much more engaging and epic combat. You may have seen this technique used in many MMOs and action RPG games because of how many positive impacts it has on gameplay. Now we have to be careful in its usage, because we are making a VR game. First, we won't overuse them because moving a lot in VR can generate disorientation and fatigue. But for a few more intense boss fights, we can get a bit crazier and challenge players. Second, we are playing in first person, so we don't usually see if there is a telegraph just under our feet. To fix this, we'll prefer to make telegraphs that start from the entity launching it and use animation to let you know it is preparing something. So if you are watching this enemy, you won't miss the telegraph. And if the attack is not coming from a specific entity, like rocks falling from above, they will be large enough to not miss them and announced by other means.
Next topic of the day, health and energy. You'll have a small user interface on your hand, showing your current health and energy values. The health bar in red represents your character's state. When you take damage, it is consumed. If it drops to 0, you die. You will notice these little white arrows at the ends of the bars. This is actually the regeneration calculated as a percentage per second. By default, your health regenerates slowly on its own, including during combat. It is possible to increase the number of arrows to speed up regeneration. For example, a spell can add 2 arrows on you for 10 seconds, which will then quickly restore your health. On the other hand, if you are poisoned, the arrow will point down, indicating that you are losing health. The same principle is in place on the second bar in blue, the energy. Energy is a universal resource used for both attacking and casting spells. It represents the fatigue of your character. When you attack, parry, or use a skill, it is consumed. When it reaches 0, it does not prevent you from performing your action, but will simply reduce its effectiveness. For example, if you attempt to parry while your energy is at 0, part of the damage from the attack will still be applied to you. To avoid having to check these bars too regularly, your character will say out loud when important situations occur, such as I'm poisoned, my health is low, or I'm exhausted. But what happens when you die? Your character is deleted. I'm just kidding. Everywhere in the world, you'll find shrines that are also marked on your map. Those small constructions are checkpoints, basically. When you get near one, it automatically becomes active. If you die, you have 2 options. Waiting for a party member to resurrect you, or respawn at the latest shrine you cross with no malus. Simple as that.
Weapons and specializations. Until now, we've only shown basic sword and fireball combat. Without entering in detail about all the options, you can rest assured that we are creating other types of weapons like bow, shield, and more. You will also have access to what we call the specialization system. It acts like mini classes you can mix together to define your way of fighting. It includes skills to activate, offensive and defensive spells, but also heals. The specialization system will be important to develop your character, especially when playing in a party. We'll share more information about it in another dedicated video.
That's it for this devlog. As usual, feel free to join us on Discord if you want to talk with us more directly, and follow us on social media to get all of the latest news. Thank you.
Bye!